everybody, welcome to Older and Wiser. I'm Bob Bates in Los Angeles, and joining me once again is my good friend Susan Sikora up there in Northern California, where she's been binge watching everything she can on television.
If this is any indication of what the new year is going to be for me, I might as well get a job as a TV critic, because not that I would have anything useful to say to anybody, and I would also have to tear myself away from watching to actually sitting and writing something, probably.
Got it. So you planted yourself in the couch, basically, for weeks on end.
Oh, yeah.
So you've recently gotten new access to Amazon Prime, I believe Netflix, perhaps Hulu. What is it you're watching these days?
Don't have Hulu, but I have watched. Let's see. I binge watched since we last spoke, which was last year. Ted Lasso. Watched all of it.
You loved it?
Liked it a lot.
Yep.
I really did. Yes. I can't wait for the next season to start. I watched the whole thing.
Yeah.
I binge watched something that was kind of, I did see, did I tell you this last time? I saw The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Yes. Now that's been out for a while, but I
loved it.
I figured you would like that.
Oh.
She's a little bit like you.
She's a lot better.
Mrs. Maisel's a little bit like a young Susan Sikora. It's a stylishly produced production as well.
It is.
What else you been binging?
You know what this is interesting. You know what I binged? I had watched it in the beginning, and then I lost track of it, I think because some personal things were happening. And then I kind of got back into it for the 4th and 5th season, and that was Insecure.
Interesting.
And I watched not only the last season, which I really liked. The 4th season had me crazy, because that's when the main character, Issa, her boyfriend, Lawrence, tells her that the other girl is going to have his baby and she's pregnant. And I was not a nervous wreck, but I was concerned for Issa for a whole summer. I thought, what is she going to do? And he got this job in San Francisco.
That's the problem when you binge an episode and then the whole season, then they leave you with a cliffhanger, and then you get to worry about it through the summer.
I know, and I thought, what's she going to do?
It's a popular series. I'm glad you mentioned it.
I like what she did. I like what she did, and I liked her. She's likable. She's one of these people that you say, do I like this character? Do I care about this character? And I did, and I wanted to know what happened to her. Yeah,
I know for sure you've been jumping on Being the Ricardos, because you are the original Lucille Ball fan, the original I Love Lucy fan. I gotta ask, what did you think?
I loved it.
Yeah,
I thought it was great. Now, it addressed some things. It went over the space of a week. They say it's
which I thought was an interesting way to do it.
Yes, I did
many
too.
people have done depictions of I Love Lucy show and all the characters and so forth. I'd never seen it done quite this way, where it was really all about this one particular episode and the week in which she was being accused of being a communist, and the headlines came out in the paper.
Mm-hmm. But there were other things they addressed, things that you had heard I've heard all through the years from other people who are also I Love Lucy devotees. And it was things like, do you know that they always wanted Ethel to look a little frumpier and heavier than Lucy? That was addressed.
Yeah.
There were things about the relationship between Lucy and Desi Arnaz, and also how much different she was off camera than on. A friend of mine who watched said, I didn't like it as well. I said, why not? And she said, well, I just didn't think Nicole Kidman played the part as funny in this. I said, are you talking about Lucille Ball?
Right.
Or are you talking about Lucy Ricardo?
Lucy Ricardo,
because Lucy Ricardo was a character, and I thought they did it, but they didn't spend the bulk of time on recreating the scene. They talked about what happened going into it, and what a complete brilliant woman Lucy was, in terms of what's funny and what's not.
And Nicole Kidman she did not look like Lucille Ball, but that's okay, because after a while you kind of forget what the original Lucy looked like, and you are believing that Nicole Kidman is Lucille Ball. She won a Golden Globe for her performance.
Yes.
Do you think it was deserved?
I'd have to go back and see who else was against her, and I really hate when I say against, competing. I don't know, but yes, I thought she nailed it because I was one of these people like Insecure. I went in with a preconceived notion of Nicole Kidman as Lucille Ball. I don't think so. It doesn't.
That was my first thought as well.
And once I got over that, and I said, okay, in the first 10, 15 minutes, it was like, yeah, all right, she's Lucy. Let's go on.
All right, well, let's get started today with just some items we've come across in publications in various places across the internet. First of all, this first one comes to us from tastingtable.com, and the headline is just spoke to me because I do this all the time. The question is it rude to season your food before tasting it?
I cracked up when I saw this.
Yeah.
I have to say.
It is probably one of those things that so many husbands and wives argue about, right?
I heard this at the dinner table when I was a little girl, not from my mother to me. And I don't even know if it was to my father, but with the three of us were sitting there, and the conversation was, she knew somebody, she never told me who it was, who the wife decided that if the salt was used on the meal, that this was an insult to her cooking.
Yes.
And I thought, what?
Well, I think when she puts the plate down in front of her husband and he immediately reaches for the salt and covers it with salt, the indication is, and the suggestion is that, honey, you didn't put enough salt in this. I know you never put enough salt in this, so I'm going to put enough salt in this.
Yep, but go to the piece and the survey, and what it said, wasn't it Thomas Edison?
Right. Well, that's an interesting story. Thomas Edison, according to the folklore, is that when he was trying to hire a lab assistant or somebody who was going to work for him, he'd take him out to lunch, order soup, and if this person who was applying for a job salted the soup before tasting it, he wouldn't hire that person because and the way he put it was that he wanted people who were curious and would evaluate a situation first, which is what scientists do, right?
If you start using the salt first, I agree with this, by the way. I think this is pretty brilliant. I don't know if it actually resulted in fabulous hires for him, but I think it makes sense because if you salt something before you even taste it, you don't know if it's too salty.
Well, you don't, unless you are married to the person who prepared it, in which case there is some scientific research that gives you information in advance. For example, you know that if your wife made this soup and she's the same soup she always makes, you're probably more likely to need to salt it because you have a history of eating her soup.
So here's my take on this. If your wife puts soup in front of you, you should taste it first.
Yes.
I like these potato chips. They are made by one company, and you can only find them in one store usually. No salt potato chips. No salt. I know. Good. See, everybody, and that's the reaction I get from everybody when I mention it. They go, ew, and I'm thinking to myself, do you like potato chips or do you like salt? Because in that case, I have a can of Morton salt here that you can have. I'll give you a spoon and go at it.
Yeah.
I don't like things too salty, and I don't really add salt to most of my food, and I haven't.
Well, it's not good for us, to be honest.
No, it's not.
And
it's not. In fact, I look at the sodium.
Used to it because we've done it so long. We just want salt. Too much salt is very bad for us.
It is. And do you find yourself looking to see what the sodium content is in even prepared foods or frozen foods?
I sort of don't want to know because
you don't want to know because it's high.
I like my salt.
Yeah. Well, it's either salt, fat, or sugar. So
according to this article by Misconduct in tastingtable.com, there are some guidelines for when you can and shouldn't salt your food. Apparently, if you are going to a restaurant where salt and pepper shakers are already on the table, it's a pretty good sign that you can salt with ease and fearlessness. You can just go ahead and do it whenever you want. Breakfast, in particular, is one of those places that nobody cares whether you add salt to anything.
It's just eggs.
Got to have salt on your eggs. Just bottom line. So nobody could complain that you have your eggs weren't salty enough when delivered to your table, right?
I don't add it. Go ahead.
A white tablecloth establishment is a very different thing. So if you go to one of these really fancy restaurants where they've got one of these renowned chefs, it's considered rude to salt your food when it's brought to the table. Either rude or just a little uneducated in the world of food.
Chefs that are really, really good, many of them, not all of them, can be very egotistical, and maybe rightly so because they're brilliant chefs. So they feel that what they put in front of you is perfect. First of all, I have to say, the chef usually is not standing over you when you're eating something.
That's true.
The chef is someplace else preparing the meal for somebody else. I don't see it as an insult, but again, I'm not somebody who reaches for the salt shaker.
I feel like if you go to an expensive restaurant and you're paying a qualified chef to prepare something nice, maybe, just maybe, you ought to taste it before you start adding sriracha or salt or anything to it. Just give it a shot.
Yeah. And also it might be an indication also that your taste buds have changed, maybe just for a natural process of aging. And it might also be that something is off. One of the signs of COVID in the beginning was you'd lose your sense of taste. So that may be a sign that if you need salt right away, you might want to look at that need and what it's.
Interesting. It could be a medical condition. I never thought about that before.
To me, salt and pepper shakers, I have some cute salt and pepper shakers, but I have to say, to me, they're ornament more than anything. The only time I put them on the table is if I have company. Otherwise, I don't use it.
We have a friend, Nikki, who actually collects salt and pepper shakers. And she has so many that when she invites you for dinner, each person has their own little set of salt and pepper shakers at their place, which I thought was kind of a clever idea. And of course, by the way, anytime you're going out with a potential employer to a nice restaurant, you're going to make a better impression if you at least taste the food in front of you before you start.
If they get you a $50 piece of filet mignon and you say, "Could you pass that salt shaker in here?" So, I really want this job.
Yeah, you better be really good at the job that they're hiring you for. They may not overlook that. All right, next we've got a piece from Livestrong.com. Here was the headline. Surprising thing you should do every day if you want to age well. First of all, don't you hate those kind of headlines?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, where they say, this vegetable could be on your plate right now and could kill you tomorrow. Read more. I hate that.
Yeah. You know what? I've stopped biting because I know, and you know this too, having worked in television as we both did for years, and this much has not changed. It's only gotten worse. It's called a tease.
It's a tease, man. You'll see it all the time on the internet. News stories. I read a lot of news on my phone, and I realize that you get one of those headlines, I got to figure out what it is I have to do every day to keep myself from aging, and I scroll, and they're telling you a lot of stuff. There's paragraph after paragraph after paragraph before they finally get to the thing that they're trying to tell you. So I get it.
Yeah,
it's a little routine.
Things like, and you know why I'm telling you this? I don't want to yell back. I don't care. Just tell me what it is. Get to the point.
The other thing they do on the internet is those things where you got to hit read more or next. You got to click the little arrow to go to the next page, and there's more ads on the next page, and then it's a whole scam.
I've gotten pretty moderately spectacular at deleting that because I see right away, and they all do the same thing. They think they're giving you something, and they don't realize it's not in a vacuum, or maybe they do and they don't care, but you have to be aware of the fact that everybody else is doing the same thing. So if you're getting this all day long, you've gotten smart. I delete things right away if it looks like it's asking me for money. I'm thinking, go to somebody who's got money. Don't ask me. That's it. Goodbye. Yeah. And don't waste my time.
Well, I don't think the folks from Livestrong were doing exactly all of that. But they did post this little article, which I thought was pretty interesting because they said right up at the top, the thing you should do every day if you want to live longer is to sit on the floor.
Oh, I saw this.
Do you ever sit on the floor?
Do I ever? I used to when I did yoga. Now that I binge watch TV, forget it. I want to sit where it's comfortable. I'm going to be there for hours, if not days.
You need to be reclined as comfortably as possible.
Yeah. Now No, I don't sit on the floor. That's why I have a couch. I want to get a new couch, but I don't want to get a new couch until I can get the old couch out and get the new couch in.
According to
because
this,
I don't want to sit on the floor.
Sitting on the ground can help you live longer and stronger. Research in the European Journal of Preventive Cardiology found that the ability to get up from the floor is a significant predictor of longevity in people ages 51 to 80. So part of it is not just the actual sitting on the floor, but the process of getting up and getting down onto the floor is therapeutic, but also it is also indicative of your health.
It's also embarrassing now, trying to get up.
It's embarrassing.
I have to tell you, I can get up, but it's ugly.
Well, if you've got to kind of roll over onto all fours and then get your walker out and climb up the walker.
We're not there yet, but it's good to have the wing chair nearby. Lean on something that doesn't flip over.
Exactly. Getting up and down helps your balance and your coordination. And,
that's probably true.
Sitting on the floor also encourages you to sit more upright.
I think so.
Over. Yeah.
In yoga class, when we sat upright, and if you sat in the lotus position, which is basically cross-legged, if you don't do yoga, you do tend to sit upright.
Yeah, they say you should. If you do sit on the floor, you should avoid slouching, sit upright, and squeeze your shoulder blades together as best you can. It's probably good, especially for older folks, to sit on a small pillow or a towel because it's probably pretty uncomfortable on the back of your spine.
You know what was comfortable if that was the case, and sometimes that was, in yoga, you would sit on a block. There was a block that you would use.
Like a wood block?
Not wood. It was usually some kind of a styrofoam or rubber kind of thing, heavy. So it wouldn't collapse. You'd sit on it, and it raised you just a couple of inches, your back, so that you would put it kind of on the back, under your spine and your rear end.
They also recommend that you try to move your legs. Like if you're going to sit on the floor, don't stay in one position too long. Switch from maybe crossing your legs to putting your legs out in front of you to maybe sitting with your feet flat on the floor and your knees bent, something like that. Like rotate those positions so your legs don't get...
I think any sentence with the word move in it applies across the board these days.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to a recent survey that reveals America's best and worst leftovers. Yeah, we're going right into...
Ask me what I had for breakfast this morning.
What did you have for breakfast this morning?
Leftover slice of cold pizza. And I had it cold intentionally. I did warm it up a little bit because I thought this is going to come up in the conversation. I have to know the difference. And it was a little better warmed up. I threw it in the microwave for 30 seconds or something. But cold pizza and cold pasta, which horrifies a lot of my friends and most of my family, I'm sure.
No. It's good. It's good. Cold pizza is delicious.
I like it too.
I'm sorry, but it's very good.
Yeah.
And a lot of people love cold pizza. Cold pasta, well, listen, there's pasta salad, which is cold. So there's a precedent for eating cold pizza. Cold pasta, which makes some sense.
And also, by the way, things like soup and tomato sauce for pasta, and I'm sure there's other things, are sometimes better the second day.
Oh, I absolutely believe that to be true. In fact, I make chili that I think is good on the first day, but it's 10 times better as a leftover. Absolutely.
Yeah, my mother used to say this years ago when we'd have spaghetti, and she'd say that the spaghetti sauce, that she'd make a lot of it, and we might have it the next day or the next evening for dinner again, and it was better the second day because everything kind of got into, it was almost like marinating a little longer.
These survey participants were asked what their favorite best leftovers are, and pizza was was right up there at the top with 63% of the respondents choosing that as their pick. 55% say they like to save rice and have that the next day, but the number one leftover is at 70% is soup. But I think people make soup with the intention of eating it over a period of days. I'm not even sure this qualifies as a leftover. I don't know. But
I don't think we're talking about a can of, cream of mushroom or something like that.
12% of people say they
fresh.
never eat leftovers, so that's kind of a small percentage.
Why?
But I think there are some people. Well, I mean, you're on the run, you eat what you eat, and then you move on to the next day. I understand the concept of not keeping stuff in your fridge, and I'm surprised that it's only 12%. I would have thought that more people would just say, nah, don't do that.
I also think there's an issue in there too about not wasting. I mean, I'm not saying
Sure.
It's
But
not the
12%
question
of people would be happy to waste. They're fine.
Yeah, no, I agree. They do, and they say there's studies that come out more than once now a year saying how much food we waste while people go hungry. So you do the math on that and figure out how that's balanced, because it's not.
According to this, the worst things to keep as leftovers, 42% of people say eggs, and 33% say sushi. Of course, you would never keep leftover sushi. I think egg rolls do not keep well in Chinese food. What else would you not keep?
Well, I think those things that you said. I mean, I'm not a meat eater. I haven't been for years.
Yeah.
But the egg rolls probably, and when I get an egg roll, generally it's not with meat in it. It's not pork or chicken. It's usually a vegetable egg roll.
Yeah.
So that would keep.
French
but
fries? You wouldn't eat French fries. Save that.
No. Are you kidding?
Keep.
If I had French fries in front of me, they'd be gone. There would be no leftovers.
There'd be no leftovers. Yeah, I mean, there are what when you're at a restaurant and you can't quite finish your meal, what decisions do you have to make about whether you're going to ask the waiter for a doggy bag or a box?
None. Get it. You paid for it. Get it. They can bring it.
I mean, how much food on your plate would you have scooped into a box?
Okay. If there's 2 French fries left, and there wouldn't be, I think we've established that for me, I wouldn't bother. I would just eat them. Or
also, French fries, I'm not sure I'd take French fries as much as like Chinese food. I definitely would take Chinese food.
Yeah, because they usually give you more than you need.
They give you more than you need. You always end up with leftover.
Tasty, and also, and it's a good leftover. It travels.
It does. And I tend to ask them just for one box, and I just scoop everything all into one box and let it all mix together. Like, I'll take the, the curry chicken and the vegetables and whatever, and the brown rice and the white rice, and just throw it all into one container.
Sure, yeah, and you can, and it works.
Yeah. I feel bad asking them to bring me 18 different containers so I can have a spoonful of white rice in one and a spoonful of something else in something.
Yeah, well, we're back to the landfill and the waste then again. And also, how many boxes are you going to walk? Are you going to walk out with a big bag of stuff? You might as well say, I'll pick it up and take it to go.
It used to be doggy bags were embarrassing, that you had to really try to convince the waiter that you had a dog because you wouldn't possibly eat a leftover from the restaurant. It's only for the dog. I think people have gotten over that, don't you?
Not only have they gotten over it, they've realized that they're leaving money on the table when they do that. Secondly, I don't remember ever having to convince a waiter I had a dog. And thirdly, get over it, which is really the first thing. Get over it.
I just remember that from the 60s, like sitcoms, where people would they'd want a doggy bag, but they didn't want anyone to think that they were going to eat it themselves. They wanted them to think they were going to give it to their dog.
Well, then the reality of the cost of living versus wages hit in, and they thought, you know what, I think I'm going to take this because I paid for it, and it'll save me money for tomorrow's meal. I mean, it only makes sense in a lot of ways, but that's one.
Finally, today, we're back to the topic of body image with this headline from Good Housekeeping. I was surprised to see this headline. More than 17% of people would trade years of their life for the ideal body.
All right. This is crazy.
Yeah. So.
Here's the problem. Are you asking this of people, and the problem, maybe they didn't tell you, are you asking this of people who are 25 years old, or are you asking this of people who are 90? And
there's lots that isn't clear here. That's for sure.
The other thing is this: they said you're trading it for a perfect body.
For an ideal body. So
what? Okay.
I guess the bottom line is most people aren't really happy with their bodies. 48% of respondents are unhappy with the way their bodies look and feel. Only 6% feel generally happy with their bodies. Imagine that. 6% of people said they feel pretty happy about their bodies. That is not a lot.
First of all, let me say I think this applies more to women than men. I think most men feel okay about their bodies, and I think you'll find more women trying for the perfection, which probably is never possible. I mean, when you get to a certain age and you think, wow, I used to think this was old. I don't feel as decrepit as I used to see people at this age.
I know.
Looking
Yeah,
to
you
me.
look at pictures of someone from the 60s who are our age. Mm-hmm. And as decrepit as we may feel right now, we look a lot better than they looked in 1965.
Well, yeah, yes.
Exactly. A 65-year-old in 1965 was, in pretty bad shape oftentimes.
I have a picture of my mother's, is it her grandmother or her great-grandmother? I think it's her grandmother. No, her great-grandmother. I'm telling you, this picture is frightening. She looks about 400 years old, this woman. And my joke is she's probably 30, okay? So
yeah, it's a very different world today.
Much different. And that all takes a toll.
11% of the respondents say they'd give up sex in exchange for their ideal body. I think this is counterintuitive. Call me crazy. But if you're giving up sex, what if you get this great body and then you've given up sex? I mean, what's up with that?
How old are these people? Back to my original question. Because if we're talking about people who are in their late 60s, early 70s, early 80s, even 90s, it's not about sex. It's about can I get up off the floor when I sit down there and make myself feel younger?
Maybe, we're fortunate. Yeah, okay, I hear you. 25% would trade an entire category of food to have an ideal body. Well, if they would trade that category, they'd probably have an ideal body, I'm thinking.
Well, maybe. I mean, if they're going to trade vegetables, that's not the category you want to trade. I would trade liver and any kind of red meat. I don't eat red meat, but I certainly would. I would have traded liver any day of the week, and I still would.
Do they even provide liver as something you can eat in a grocery store?
I don't know. You're asking the wrong person. If there's a liver section in the grocery store, I haven't been in it ever.
All right, time for us to wrap this up. Susan, as always, we ask you what your thought of the day is.
What's my thought of the day? Don't salt your food before you try it.
Yeah, I love
and
that.
Also, binge watch something you're not sure you'd really... you're not sure it's for you. It might give you some insights.
It's a great idea. Listen to your friends, too, when it comes to binging. If somebody has been watching a show and they really like it, give it a few episodes. We do the 5-minute test. We'll watch it for 5 minutes. And if it doesn't hook us, we'll click on to the next one. There's just so much out there to watch these days that it's hard to spread your time around,
Yes,
so that it's
I agree.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, folks. For all the stuff that matters when you're 50 plus, visit us at olderandwiser.com. And Susan and I will be back next week. By the way, if you are listening to us on a podcast platform and you want to see what we look like, oh my God, I'm not sure you want this. Check us out at YouTube. Just search olderandwiser.com, and there we will be, smiling faces, so you can enjoy us in living color.
With or without glasses.
With or without glasses.
But always with lipstick. God gave us lipstick.
There you go. All right, folks. See you next time.
Bye.